How you guys doing tonight? I'm going to start out with some Mesillat Yesharim again. Rokasha. Chapter 4, Acquiring Vigilance. Generally speaking, the virtue of vigilance is acquired through the learning of Torah, as Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair said. In the beginning of the Berita, Torah brings one to vigilance. However, specifically, what brings one to vigilance is the contemplation of both the gravity of the divine service that man is obligated to fulfill and the exactitude of divine judgment in these matters. He will arrive at this through the analysis of those events written in Scripture and through the study of teachings of the sages of blessed memory, in which these ideas are highlighted. This type of contemplation can lead to the motivation of three distinct kinds of individuals, each in accordance with his level: those who are truly wise, those who are of lesser aptitude, and the general masses. Those who are truly wise will be motivated when they recognize that they should aspire only for perfection and nothing less, and that there is no harm greater than the lack of perfection and one's remoteness from it. Once this becomes clear and once it becomes evident that the means leading toward this are appropriate deeds and character development, refining our midot through Musar, they will surely never agree to a decrease in these means or to any laxity concerning them, for it would already have become clear to them that if these means were decreased or were diluted to a significant degree, they would not achieve perfection. Rather, it would be lacking in proportion to the deficiency in their effort, the end result being that they would lack perfection. This would be a terrible misfortune and a great tragedy for them. Therefore, they have no choice but to augment the means, strictly implementing all the conditions involved. They will find neither rest nor peace as they worry over what they lack in order to achieve the desired perfection. This is what Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, may peace be upon him, said in Proverbs chapter 28, verse 14. Praiseworthy is the man who is always fearful. And our sages of blessed memory have commented, this was written in reference to the words of the Torah. The summit of this level of motivation, which is one of the most praiseworthy levels, is referred to as fear of sin. This means that a person should constantly fear and worry lest he find within himself a particle of sin that prevents him from attaining the perfection that he must strive for. Vigilance is fear of sin, or at least the beginnings. I think that's the other reason why I really connected to what Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel said in Pirkei Avot when Rabban Yochanan asked his five disciples, which is the proper path a man should choose for himself. A good friend, a good neighbor. I can't remember all the rest. Rabbi Shimon said foresight. And Rabbi Elazar ben Arak said a good heart, which contains all of them. So, of course, Rabban Yochanan said that he prefers the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Arak. There's a link in the description I'll also post it here if I can in the comments so it's easy to find. And where was it? Somewhere. This video was posted today, I think, anyway, on Ruben Short's channel. And it is a crystal clear example that there is only one truth. Only one. And that the sages of the Talmud are correct. The thumbnail for this video should work as a general key to motivate you, hopefully, to go click the link and watch the, I think it's about 20 minutes. But if you watch about 3 to 5 minutes, is all it should take to hook you to where you're questioning, like if you believe any part of the Old Testament, what Rabbi Ruben's talking about in that clip should hook you in the first few minutes, because he's gonna make you question a lot of things, because we all been lied to our entire lives. Like there's so much missing from what people know about the Bible. What people know is the Bible. One, the most basic, break it down to the raw elements, is that they're like the Hebrew language as it is in the Torah scrolls and has always been written until about 2,000 years ago, or 1,500 years ago, give or take. There was never any kind of written vowel system. It was all just like, you look, hey Gordon, how you doing? If you look at the thumbnail, you see the dots and lines and stuff underneath the letters, the Hebrew letters, underneath friend or foe. Those are the same two Hebrew letters in two different words, a resh and an ayin. And without those dots, it doesn't mean anything at all. Like in scriptural Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, it could, but the only way modern Hebrew is read is by context of what words which, because they don't use any what's called nikud, the little dots and dashes, which make up all the vowel sounds. Scriptural Hebrew is purely consonant forms, like g, t, s, sh. There's no a, e, i, o, u, and sometimes yud or y. All that stuff comes from the oral law. One logically, all you have to do is think, say you're a very special person, and somehow you managed to refine yourself to the point where God decided that you had the merit for him to talk to you personally. And then you had another son, and all the stuff that you learned straight from God throughout your whole life, you think you're just going to throw it in the garbage and not pass it on to your son? and his son to his son, and on throughout history. I mean, one, the sages teach that there was an oral Torah since Adam HaRishon, that since the first man, when God created the world. There's an oral tradition that was passed down since the very beginning. Bereshit bara Elohim. But the vowel system for the Hebrew language is part of the infinite, just massive things that are in the Talmud, and there's no way to read. There's no way to read, like Rabbi Reuben says in that clip in the link. It's like Rabbi Reuben mentions in the clip in that link. There's not even any sentence structure. There's no like beginning or ending of sentences or anything. It's all just complete nonsense. Okay, which September? Oh, is it one that was posted recently? I have so many videos that I've worked on the last couple of weeks. All I know is there's some that are uploaded, some that are live, some that haven't been posted yet, some that I need to upload, and about 20 that I need to God's help to finish. Most likely it's just Rosh Hashanah. Just another reminder for anyone that missed out or forgot or whatever. Judgment Day. We have until September 15th. Today is 12th. Technically it's the 13th of Elul since it's nightfall. So we have I think 16 days left. But the amazing thing, I was reading Pirkei Avot. I got the big book with a whole bunch of commentary on it. And I was reading it on Saturday, and I got to this line where it's talking about a bunch of stuff about the Jews and the Torah and all the history and all the rabbis and the forefathers, the patriarchs, what they call Avot. That's what Pirkei Avot comes from. It's literally chapters of the fathers. And I saw a familiar Hebrew root that I knew, but it was a new word because of the nikud, the dots and dashes underneath it. And it's just so Baruch Hashem, it's so amazing. So amazing. It takes the word that I knew and turns it upside down. Literally upside down. And that's what the title and the thumbnail for the stream is about. Because in this thing, it's talking about how the wicked prophet Bilam, he tried to curse the Jews in the book of Numbers. And no matter how hard he tried, God would not let him. And so he prophesied about the nation of Israel, about the Jews, and said that God sees no iniquity in Yaakov and perceives no I can't remember what the word is. Like no no impurity in Israel. And those are two synonyms for the Jewish people. Yaakov, the forefather of the 12 tribes, his name that he was given at birth or after he was born was Yaakov, but once he became selected, that God was going to continue the line through him, and that all the nation of God's people was going to come through him. God gave him the name Israel. But God calls or Balaam in the prophecy, the wicked, evil Balaam calls. He said, God is a friend. God is a friend of Israel. And the word is the same, resh ayin, but the nikud is the, I think on the stream it's friend is on the left. Hold on, sorry. I have to go look at the. Okay, yeah. They're under the right letter. Like friend is under friend and foe is under foe. It's both the same root, both the same exact letters, but they mean two completely different things. Ra and Re'ah. Ra is evil and Re'ah is friend. And when people are blinded by their arrogance and their desires, we absolutely cannot see the truth. We can't even tell the difference between friend or foe, enemy. We can't tell the difference between something that is evil and something that is good. And so we completely abandon all the teachings, all the words of the sages. They're trying to help us all serve God and get to heaven, or at the very least minimize our chances of ending up in Gehenna and hell. But so many people just hear one word, like they hear Jew or they hear rabbi, and they just run away in the other direction. Or if they don't do that, they stand and just spew nonsense of all the lies that they were taught. And it's so ridiculous, because really all it takes is someone digging into it, just the tiniest bit, and God will open up just an ocean of truth for us to find. And Baruch Hashem, it never ends. Like, never, not just endless. When I first started reading, I read the Bible like most people. I was never really that. The New Testament always just seemed kind of weird. The only thing I really had any attachment to it all was Jesus turning over the tables of the money changers. That was about it. Everything else just didn't seem quite right. But when I read, there was a verse about what's called tefillin. The most English translations translate it as phylacteries, which is a ridiculous word. And the funny thing is, there's a branch of Judaism called Karaite Judaism, and like the Christians and the Reform Jews and pretty much everyone else, all the heretics and atheists, they hate the Talmud. They hate the oral law. And it's once a person learns anything with the intent to know the truth, it becomes so ridiculous that any religion could exist, because they're just a bunch of blind fools. But that's what I thought. I read the verse about tefillin where it says, "You shall bind them for a sign upon your head and upon your arm. And remember that I took you out of Egypt with a strong hand and an outstretched arm." And I thought, it's to bind, so a Jew binds their thoughts and their actions to God's will. And of course, that is what it means, but that is not the Peshat. That's not the basic, like, very literal meaning. The literal meaning is you'll actually take these leather straps and boxes and strap them on your head and on your arm every single day of your life, as a physical reminder that you're supposed to bind your thoughts and your actions to what God says in the commandments. And the laws of how to make tefillin, they were given to Moses at Mount Sinai 3,334 or 5 years ago. And there's a whole, like a massive list of very specific laws of exactly how they have to be made. And it doesn't, it's not like Rabbi Reuben says, it's not a rational thing. It's to wear a little box of leather on your head with some straps and another one on your arm. It doesn't make any kind of sense. They do it because God said so. That's why. But there is an amazing wisdom. Oh, Baruch Hashem. Yes. There's an amazing wisdom in everything that God says. Not just like little things that we see here and there, but like an infinite amount of stuff that we have no concept of, especially the mitzvot, the commandments that God gives the Jews. Like tefillin is one example. It is so they can remind themselves every day of why they do what they do and connect to God in a very real way. But God gives them the most amazing blessing. Some secular atheist who was a doctor organized a research group, I don't know, like 10 or 15 years ago, or give or take. And he did this study, and he found that Orthodox Jews that put on tefillin every day had some insane amount of reduced risk of heart attack, like just a phenomenal reduction of heart attack. And God says in this week's parsha that if they follow his mitzvot, if they follow his commandments, they follow his Torah, he will bless them in the most amazing ways. Like every good thing that a person could possibly hope for, and a bunch of things no one could ever even imagine. God will protect them. He does the same for non-Jews, for Goyim. We do the best we can, but it's nowhere near the list of virtual miracles that he does for a Jew that does their best to be righteous. The other thing that Rabbi Reuben mentions in that clip is there's no word for the male reproductive organ in scriptural Hebrew. All it is nakedness or law. And God says, cut this part off your body. I mean, the only reason, and this is the most ridiculous thing, and so like a clear example of how people's evil inclination and their failure to refine their character traits, like the Ramchal is talking about in Path of the Just, it blinds a person to something that is so clear and obvious. I just lost my train of thought. Please go. Please help us. We're floating in the ocean. Oh, Baruch Hashem, thank you. Circumcision. Everyone knows what circumcision is now. And why is that? Because they have their own oral law. That's how everyone knows, is because it's everyone, you know, everyone knows because everyone told, people told everyone else, and now pretty much the entire world knows what circumcision is. But until that point, like thousands of years ago, only the oral tradition that was kept by the Jews had the clear instructions of exactly what body part was circumcised and how to do it. This is so amazing. The other thing that man, there's Torah is so awesome, but at the same time, I see people that I care about, and I see them like suffering the curses, literal curses, like in this week's parsha, which with God's help I will post right now, just as a for anyone that might tune in that absolutely must start reading the 5 books of Moses every single week. I think you probably missed the the intro of the stream where I was reading about from Misla Esharim from Path of the Just, but Ramchal was talking about vigilance and the steps, or like the beginning stages of fear of sin. And he said that learning Torah is how one begins to acquire fear of sin. And this week's Torah portion is, if you ever needed an extra jump start, man, this is it. Fear of God in the Baruch Hashem. It's, don't feel too bad. It took me so long to listen to Robert Rubin. Like, he was saying the whole time what to do, but I literally did not even hear what he was saying. Like he was saying, like, over the last year I watched some old streams from the very beginning in 2020 when I started watching, and even most of 2021 when I was watching his lectures. But until I really laser focused, and I stopped watching and listening to all the other nonsense, and then all the other rabbis, and just decided that God gave me a super duper sign that I needed to just learn from Rabbi Reuben. And as soon as I did that, it was like God opened up the gates of wisdom, at least enough to make a huge, massive difference. It was like all of a sudden I realized that all the stuff that I was looking for everywhere else, it was all right there, right in front of my face. I was just blind, deaf, and dumb, completely blinded. There's just the words of the sages are so amazing, because they're always true. It takes some time for a person to experience that they're true, especially at first, because we're so rough and unpolished. But it takes a while to wear through the surface before we can start really soaking in anything that affects us the way it should. But the whole time he was saying, read the Torah portion, read the weekly parsha, learn Musar. The whole time he's talking about steps of teshuva, and like in maybe not every stream, but that's why we have to listen to all of it, like beginning to end, and don't skim. And like he said, take notes. Take notes. He said, I don't even remember what I say. So how are you going to remember it? So you got to take notes. And that's what he does. When he learns, he still learns almost every day with his rabbi, Rabbi Ephraim Coughlin. And he takes notes. But then when he can, he'll watch the lecture over, like, again, to catch anything he missed. And that's the amazing thing about Torah, is we can go over the same. That's one of the reasons why the Torah portion, like, it's read. We'll finish it this year, and then Bezrat Hashem, with God's help, we'll start in Bereshit and Genesis in about I think less than a month, and then do it all over again, and then again and again and again and again until we're dead, every year. And every single year, as long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, learning and applying what we learn, we'll always find new things that we didn't see last year. And it's just constantly unfolding. But it took me a long time to finally wake up, and I don't know, like the whole time I thought I was trying, but really it's a constant process. I want to talk about this verse, this verse from the Parsha in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 27. There's another verse later on, I think, in chapter or verse 35 or so. and the list of horrendous curses. The Lord will smite thee with boils of Egypt. And with a scab and an itch, which cannot be healed. Rashi says this was very bad, being wet on the inside and dry on the surface. And there are certain people that I've been trying to get to break, do whatever I can to slip in some truth every once in a while when I kind of feel that they're maybe God cracked their what's called a klipa, their husk of sins on the soul. That's the real reason why we can't see or accept the truth, is because we have this spiritual husk of filth. It's like a scab on the soul. And the only way the truth can get in is once there's some kind of opening, some kind of fracture or break. Otherwise, there's no way. God wants the truth to get in there, but what can He do? We put all this cement on our soul and ruined everything. So His only option is to just keep beating us with an invisible hammer of life, till eventually there's some tiny little crack where a little fragment of truth can get in, and we can just be completely shocked at what it's like is so different, and wow, what in the world is this? But some people are so have such an aversion, like we were talking about the other night, like the Ramchal and Rambam talk about, where they're spiritually sick, and they sense the opposite of reality. Since good is evil and evil is good. Just like the people that disregard the teachings of the sages. They can't tell Ra from Rea. They can't tell evil from friend. Well, this person, I've told them everything is in the Torah portion. I've given them examples. I even told them about the stuff that I found in Parashat Tazria Metzora with the raid on Waco and a bunch of other stuff. And they're so into conspiracies, they think it's aliens or some kind of nonsense. And I wanted somehow they got into poison ivy this week, and they've got boils, like wet and dry lesions all over. I want to be like, this is in the Torah portion. Come and see. I don't know where, but I know the answer is in there for, how to fix it too, because God's got the cure before He gives us the disease. We just have to look for it and ask him for help. But this person is so bent on conspiracies and paranoia that the likely response would be, "You did this, didn't you? You did this. This was a setup. You you contaminated me with poison oak." Now, what are you supposed to tell somebody when they have some kind of response like that? The response that that's forbidden is not going to register with them because they have no idea what Yirat Shamayim is. They have no idea what fear of God is. That's a rule that we have to know and live by. There's no such thing as making a mitzvah by way of an avera. You can't fulfill God's will by committing a sin or a transgression against him and his laws. I mean, you can try, but it's not going to work. You may think you succeed, but God's not going to credit anyone with fulfilling a commandment by committing a sin. But people who don't even understand basic concepts of nothing remotely close to what fear of sin is, they're not going to understand what you're talking about at all, unfortunately. One of the most frustrating things a person can experience is knowing what is going to happen and not being able to do anything to change it. I mean, God gives us all the ability to change pretty much everything. It's just, do we have the merit to do it? It takes a lot of merit to do a great thing, a massive, unimaginable amount of merit. That's why the sages say, Rambam's commentary on Pirkei Avot, I think it's chapter 3, verse 15 or 6, or Mishnah 15 or 16, where Rabbi Akiva talks about the freedom of choice is granted. Freedom of choice is granted. I can't remember the rest of it. I remember the end. The world is judged with goodness. Baruch Hashem. If it wasn't for Hashem's mercy, we wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't have made it at all. It would have been the sixth day God created man and Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, and they sinned, and then it would have been over if it wasn't for God's attribute of mercy and repentance, teshuvah. Yeah. Different translations or versions of Pirkei Avot have the order kind of different, but the one we've been reading is 3:15. Everything is foreseen, yet freedom of choice is granted, and the world is judged with goodness. and everything is in accordance with the preponderance of works. Both Bartner and Rambam say that means the preponderance of works, the majority of the deed that a person does. If a person wants to do great things, we have to do many small things. And that's also what we've been listening to Musar Perkei Avot 57, one of Rabbi Reuben's series based on the Perkei Avot. I think it's, what is it? I think we're on 4.2. Ben Azai, Ben Azari, or no. Ben Azai. Ben Azai said, be quick in performing a minor commandment, as in the case of a major one, and flee from a transgression, for one commandment leads to another commandment, and a transgression leads to another transgression. For the reward of performing a commandment is another commandment, and a reward for committing a transgression is another transgression. Rabbi Reuben said in that lecture, in the Musar Perkei Avot 57, I think that's what it was. Rokashim 57. He said, Ben Zai and the sage in the Mishnah before this in 4.1, Ben Zoma, were two of the four rabbis that ascended the Pardes and went up alive into heaven and walked around, saw what was going on. They didn't live long enough to be ordained rabbis. But it was Rabbi Akiva, Ben Zoma, Ben Azai, and Elisha ben Avuya, Acher. I forget what all happened. One of them, basically Rabbi Akiva was the only one that was unharmed, came back whole and sane. Elisha ben Avuya completely lost his mind. He became a heretic. But before that, I learned in that lecture that I was listening to, he started murdering kids because they didn't give the right answer. He'd go to these Torah study halls, yeshivas, and he'd ask them a question of law. And when they give him a wrong answer, he'd kill them. That's your answer? Who's your rabbi? This is a desecration of God's name. Completely lost his marbles. And then in the end, he just completely stopped being observant. Totally lost it. Either Ben Azai or Ben Zoma died. I can't remember which one. But Rabbi Reuben says, Ben Azai went up to heaven and saw what was going on, and he comes back and all he tells us is, be quick to perform a commandment, whether it's a major one or a minor one, and run from a sin. But really, and one commandment leads to another commandment, and one transgression leads to another transgression. But the reality is this is exactly what someone would say if they went up to heaven and they saw what was going on. Because you don't know what the reward is for something that we think is small. It's massive. And the one commandment fulfilled leads to the God paving the way and enabling us to do another one. Leads us in the right direction, straight to heaven. But if, God forbid, we fail, one sin leads to another sin and leads in the opposite direction, straight to Gehinnom, unless we realize what's going on and we open our eyes. And we do what the Ramchal was talking about, and we come to Heshbon and we weigh the balance sheet of our own world. Lots of little good things over and over again. I don't see a comment from BV, but since there was 2 people here a second ago. I think I'm gonna have to wrap it up soon because I need some water. I need to get to sleep. The world is such an amazing place. It gives us so many options and opportunities. Oh man. There's a lot of stuff to go over. No problem, BB. You're welcome. I don't think. Yes, we all have a lot to do. Baruch Hashem. We came to this world to work. It'd be nice if we could get some other people to join God's business. Just one more. I mean, one more and one more and one more and one more and one more forever. I don't think we've gone over steps of Teshuvah. The most common ones that I've heard of are split into 4, but it's like a lot of things. It's 4 with different kind of subcategories, but the general steps are: stop. Number 1, stop the sin. Everyone has sins that we all know that we're committing. The only way to know for sure all all the sins is to learn as much as we possibly can. And like we were reminded a few weeks ago in one of Robert Rubin's lectures, is that a person has to get clarification on certain things, because the law, like even for goyim, especially with things like laws of business and like he talked about copyright with Torah. A person's own thinking can go either way, and most of the time it's not going to be right. And even when it is, them being right is almost worse than them being wrong, because if they don't know why they're right, then it will lead them to like a false sense of confidence into thinking, I know what I'm doing, when they really have no clue whatsoever. None at all. All they did was roll the dice, and God gave them a win on that one, just to see what foolish mistakes maybe they're going to make. The critical thing is to know why a certain thing is like, why it is to do this or do that. And if we don't know where to go to find the answer, that is the number one thing. Like when I encounter so many people's comments, like when I try to tell them like don't say God's ineffable name and don't write it. And well, most of the time there's no clear source. There's nowhere God says don't say or write my real, my holy name. You have to try to explain them. There's a lot of laws. They're inferred from how things are written, because if a person knows scriptural Hebrew, or even modern Hebrew, and they read the Torah like it's just a regular book, they're going to look at it and think, there's all kinds of mistakes in here. This doesn't make any sense. What is going on? God can't spell. As there's all kinds of words that have extra letters or missing letters or spelled a certain way. But the sages teach that there are extra or missing letters, but they're there for a purpose. They're to teach some critical thing. And they're all over. There's tons of those. But the heretics that read, like Robert Rubin says, they read the Torah like a Harry Potter book, and they think it was written by 10 or 15 different authors over a period of 800 years or whatever it is. Those kind of people, those kind of people are more ridiculous than the complete atheists that think they came from monkeys. Because a person that doesn't realize that the Torah is from God, yet they do it, it makes no sense whatsoever. You're doing at least some of the stuff anyway, but you're not going to get any of the reward. None of it. Because you all think it's, you miss the critical part, that it's perfect, that it's from God, and you can't mess with it. That's what happens when we try to use our monkey brain and our philosophy, which is corrupted by our human desires and our horrible character traits. Everything is so twisted We think we're smart, especially people that went to spent a quarter or $500,000 or whatever on a college education. Thank God my parents didn't have any money to send me to college once I graduated. Not that I probably would have gone anyway. By the time I graduated, my GPA was pretty low. College is just a place where people send their kids to commit sins. And that was true 100 years ago. It was a million times worse now. Literally like sending your kid to a house of prostitution. Oh, Kashim. That's the other one, but it's amazing. It's the same as the friend or foe, ra or ra. There's another word. It's we don't have a visual aid, but it's kadosh and kadesh, or what is it? Kodesh, Kodesh and kadesh. It's spelled with a kaf, dalet shin, or kuf dalet shin. God, I can't remember how to. It's the one that looks like anyway, it's Kodesh and Kadesh. Kodesh means uh, it's a word for when one of the offerings is or some animal or food is set aside for an offering and becomes Kodesh. It's similar to holy, but it's the vowelization, the nikud, and sometimes kadosh, holy, is spelled with a vav, so it's different. But kadesh is the exact opposite, the complete opposite. One thing is something that is sanctified and set aside for God, and the other thing is a prostitute. It's in this week's parsha. A prostitute. Or no, it was last week. Sorry. In I can't remember what it was. Kititse. Last week was Kititse. Oh man, we lost it. Prostitute. Let's just spell it Hebrew. Oh, I forgot we can spell and post a comment. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 18. There shall be no Kadesh. There shall be no male prostitute of the sons of Israel. Rashi says this means a man who is inclined toward pederasty. But when people ignore the wisdom of the sages, what they see as holy is disgusting filth. It's prostitution. Or vice versa. What they see as a prostitute or something, something disgusting. Like when most people hear the stuff Robert Rubin has been teaching in the Jewish Intimacy series, they think it's just too weird, too gross, or too extreme, too something. This doesn't sound right. But most people are completely warped and twisted, and even people that think themselves as being close to God and religious. The real test to know whether you are or not is what's your wife like? Is your wife a prostitute? Does she follow laws of modesty to any degree at all? Or she wear no arms and no legs? She wears short sleeves and short, who knows, God have mercy on us all, and talk like a sailor, or wear pants, which God says is an abomination. That was a shocker to me last week in Kititse. Dudes that groom themselves and shave parts of their body other than their head or their parts of their face, or wear skin tight clothes, and women that wear pants. God says they're an abomination. And I used to be an abomination as well. Not for that, but for being completely dishonest in business, or not being dishonest in not business. Both, really. Do not steal. Do not take a penny that is not yours. Person with blood on their hands will not enter heaven. For a non-Jew, shaving is permitted, but with if you convert, then there's no law to have a beard. The law is the halakha, as the rabbis of the Talmud, and okay, we're getting into, this doesn't apply to us, but just so we don't see people that don't have beards and think that they're wicked. The law is that there's no shaving next to the skin, like with an actual razor, or with the like cordless lift and cut technology where it's shaved close to the skin. You can use a trimmer or something like that. That's kosher. But just because you see some guy with a beard like Manus Friedman, I have no clue that he's righteous whatsoever. Manus Friedman is one of the biggest Reshaim, one of the biggest wicked people in the world. leading an army of Jews that should be following God straight into hell. There are people without beards that are extremely righteous and help many, many people do Teshuvah. Many people. Looks are the least important thing. Number one is what is inside. What is going on in our hearts and our actions. That is number one. The shaving thing is just like parts of the body that are covered with clothing, or should be covered with clothing. If anyone hears this in the future, just remember, no matter how hard this sounds or how wrong or whatever, this is all not my opinion. This is God's opinion and is the rulings of his sages, which he gave pretty much complete authority to do whatever they want, using his rules that he gave them. And there is nothing that God demands of us that we cannot overcome. Everyone has a desire for something that is forbidden to us. Or a desire to not do something that we're commanded to do. But just because we have an inclination, no matter what it is, whatever is going on in your head that you think you can't do, that is Satan trying to give you an excuse to not change. We absolutely cannot listen to that voice ever. Not ever. All we have to do is have the desire. Like the sages say, one who comes to be purified is granted the assistance, and one who comes to be impurified is also granted the assistance. We never want to be the one who comes to be impurified. Not ever, ever, ever. Even the righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up with God's help. And that's what we always have to keep in mind. Okay, guys, it was awesome. God is the best. This Torah is so awesome. May He continue to grant us all the wisdom and the strength to outsmart and overpower Yetzer Hara, and help us to maximize all the tools that He has given us to keep helping people, to keep helping ourselves first, to refine our character traits, to learn and apply more of His Torah, and to only learn what we are supposed to be learning, to stay in our lane. May He grant us all the tools that we need to move out of our lane and into the fast lane, so it can be counted fully and completely among Israel before the redemption comes. You're welcome. Have a good night, guys.